Zoom is taking the car-sharing business model, similar to Zipcar, to cities in India. It's the first large-scale formal car-sharing network in India. It provides convenient vehicle access to millions more Indians, while at the same time taking vehicles off the road and resulting in fewer miles driven. It brings together the technological and operational best practices from car-sharing operators around the world, while also pioneering next practices. The majority of Indians cannot afford to own cars. And even for those that can, if you live in an Indian city, traffic and parking are absolutely nightmarish. And even if you could own a car, most people don't want to. However, there are a number of trips, a few times a month, for which a car is very useful. If you want to pick up visiting relatives from the airport, if you want to go to a hill station on the outskirts of town, if you want to go on a weekend excursion, a few times a month, people do have a real demand for vehicles. However, the current existing options in India are pretty limited. Car rental is very similar to how it was in the United States 10 years ago, where you pick up cars from a remote location like the airport for a rigid period of time, and they're only open during certain periods of time during the day. Chauffeur services, taxis are expensive, involve a lot of haggling, aren't private, and aren't necessarily reliable or safe. Now, India is really ripe for car sharing. Car sharing has been extremely successful in the past 20 years in Western Europe, in the past 10 years in North America. And in the last 5 years, it's emerged extremely successfully in developing countries such as China, Turkey, and Brazil. Most notably in China, Ehai, which was founded 4 years ago, has received $100 million in outside investment and is now in 25 Chinese cities. Now, India has an enormous market potential for car sharing, even though there's no car sharing operator currently in India. India has 42 metro areas with populations over 1 million, growing to 68 such cities by 2020. In contrast, Europe only has 35 cities with populations over 1 million. At the same time, the middle class is ballooning in India. Middle-class households are expected to increase from 22 million today to 91 million by 2030. There's also a cultural and economic change in India, which is beginning to increase the prevalence of self-drive over the more traditional Indian preference for chauffeur-driven cars. Self-drive is viewed as more independent, more cool, and more Western. Also, the rising wage for drivers, combined with the falling cost of Indian manufactured cars, means that the incremental cost that a driver adds as a percentage of a single trip is skyrocketing. This is really going to end the dominance of the chauffeur model in India. And in fact, self-drive is the fastest growing car rental segment in India. In addition, car ownership rates in India are quite low. Even in Indian cities, ownership is below 15%. This provides a huge opportunity for car sharing because it's much easier to change someone's driving habits if they don't actually already own a car. Finally, traffic and pollution in India has, and particularly certain cities, has reached such catastrophic levels that it's highly likely that many of these cities are going to implement restrictions on private vehicle ownership, such as taxes, quotas, or congestion charges that are being seen around the world in places such as London, Shanghai, and Beijing. Car sharing also benefits from an enormous first mover advantage. And as I said, Zoom will be the first car sharing organization in India. Evidence around the world shows that car sharing produces a natural monopoly in each city. In each market that Zipcar expanded to that already had an incumbent car sharing organization, Zipcar had to acquire that incumbent. There's only one exception in Philadelphia, where the local nonprofit, Philly Car Share, was put out of business. Now, this natural monopoly stems from enormous first mover advantages and barriers to entry that face any newcomer. There are switching costs for users. There's favorable media coverage for this new, convenient, inexpensive green service that's being offered. There's a limited quantity of the best parking spots at apartment complexes, at shopping districts, at universities, and things of that nature. Many of the best customers, which are institutional, such as city governments or corporations, can be locked in with long-term contracts. And finally, there are scale benefits for members. Here in Boston, I know that I can go anywhere in the city at any time and get pretty much any type of vehicle that I want. Any competitor to Zipcar in Boston would have to enter with a fleet of hundreds of vehicles to provide a similar level of convenience. Furthermore, no international car-sharing company is currently targeting India for expansion. Private car ownership has enormous fixed costs. You have to buy the car, you have to pay for parking, you have to pay for an insurance. The variable costs are quite low, fuel and wear and tear on your vehicle. Car sharing reverses this cost structure. The fixed costs are negligible, a small application fee and perhaps a small membership fee. The costs are almost entirely variable. If you drive half as much, you pay half as much. This incentivizes smarter driving. If you own a car, there's really no incentive for you not to drive 4 blocks to buy a quart of milk. But if you have to reserve a car and you have to pay for that trip, you're much less likely to do it. So by eliminating fixed costs, but significantly raising variable costs, car sharing allows dramatically more people to enjoy the benefits of car ownership. People down the income ladder who normally would never even dream of having access to a vehicle now have the freedom and benefits of it. However, it reduces the total number of miles driven. Research shows that for every car-sharing vehicle in North America or Western Europe, 14 to 15 vehicles were not purchased. And even for the miles that are driven, they're driven in a smarter way. Because you reserve the car ahead of time, car sharing is much more amenable to carpooling than traditional car ownership is. Additionally, car sharing allows an individual to take a small, compact, efficient vehicle or even a plug-in electric vehicle for around town driving, and only to get an SUV or a luxury vehicle for the very occasional trips that actually demand it. And one thing I want to comment on is that the social and environmental benefits of car sharing are even greater in the developing world than they are here in the United States. It is so much easier to deter somebody from buying a car in the first place because they have an attractive alternative than it is to persuade somebody to give up a car that they already own. So not only is it fewer miles driven, there's less traffic, there's less pollution, there's enormous benefits in Indian cities. We've conducted market research that confirms a desire for car sharing in India. We surveyed 800 individuals across 4 cities in India. And there are 2 numbers that I particularly want to draw your attention to. 28% of our respondents indicated that the existence of a car-sharing organization in their city would make them less likely to want to own a car. And when asked what about car-sharing people thought was least attractive, 17% declined to answer that question and instead used the opportunity to reiterate how excited they were about car-sharing and how eager they would be to join. We're targeting Bangalore as our initial launch city. Around the world, there's a very strong correlation between urban density and the success of car sharing. Bangalore is a city of 7 million people with a population density 6 times greater than New York City. India has a number of enormous and highly dense cities that we are looking at as expansion markets. However, our launch city is Bangalore because there are more criteria for success than just density. Bangalore is the Silicon Valley of India. It has a substantially well-educated, tech-savvy, young, middle-class population that has often come from other parts of India for study or for work, and is so away from their family for the first time. There's an extensive network of universities in Bangalore, which allows for viral spread of this idea. And Bangalore has a very well-developed public transportation system, which means that people don't need a car for their daily commute. This is particularly true for the tech workers who work at organizations such as Google, Infosys, Microsoft on the outskirts of town, because these companies provide shuttles for people to get to work. However, then in the evening or on weekends, they may have demand for a private vehicle. I'm always reluctant to speak about myself, so I'll start by talking about my team. Greg Moran, the CFO, has 5 years' experience in energy and infrastructure finance, in investment banking, private equity, and business development. And he's currently attending USC's Marshall School of Business, where he's the founder of the University of Southern California Energy Club. Srinivas Rao, the Chief Operating Officer, has 18 years of experience in car rental operations in India, and he currently runs a traditional car rental organization in Bangalore that he founded. Our friend Nishikant Mehta is joining as an independent director for the Indian subsidiary, Zoomcar PLC. He's contributing his insight from 5 years of experience with online marketing, consulting, entrepreneurship, and venture investing, as well as contacts from his membership in the Mumbai Angel Network, the largest angel network in India. As for myself, I have 5 years experience in infrastructure-based entrepreneurship. I just finished my final year at Harvard Law School, where I had teaching fellowships on globalization under Neil Ferguson and under Larry Summers. And I've received full funding to pursue an MBA at the University of Cambridge in the UK next year. I want to take this opportunity, though, to emphasize how confident we are in this idea and how committed we are to it. If we raise seed funding by September, Greg will take a leave of absence from USC, and I will not go to Cambridge. We've also put together an excellent board of advisors. We have the Indian Minister of Transportation. We have the CEO and founder of Snapdeal, India's largest daily deal site, which is now valued at $200 million. And we have the director of a UN-funded sustainable transportation think tank in Mumbai, who's also a published expert on car sharing and who helped design the Bangalore mass transit system. We've also engaged Dave Brooke, the founder of the first car sharing organization in North America, in a paid advisory role. We've achieved all of our major development work and hit major milestones without outside funding. We've negotiated advanced memos of understanding with auto manufacturers, technology providers, hotels, and universities, and negotiated a particularly valuable relationship with the auto manufacturers that I'll get into later. We've engaged Bangalore real estate developers in advanced letters of intent to site our vehicles. We've conducted the market research I discussed earlier. We've identified our launch sites in Bangalore, and we've secured a relationship with Wilson Sonsini, where they are deferring their fees, and most of their fees are contingent on us raising outside funding, which we think shows real buy-in from an organization that's investing its time and resources in us. Now, we do not view most of the ways that people get around Indian cities as our competitors. Walking, biking, taking a motorcycle, taking public transportation, these are all highly complementary with car sharing. To a certain extent, we view private car ownership as our main competitor, although for people who want to buy a small compact vehicle and use car sharing when their family needs a second vehicle, there are some ways in which car sharing and car ownership is compatible. But we do view taxis and chauffeur services as our main competition. Won't go into all of the ways that we think that we provide value. We don't plan to put these out of business, but we do think that we can occupy a valuable niche in the Indian transportation ecosystem. And I particularly want to highlight the savings for someone who makes 1 4-hour car trip per week. They save more than 65% over the course of 5 years by using car sharing rather than purchasing even an inexpensive car. We're developing an advanced technology platform. This includes consumer-facing technology, such as the online reservation system and our in-car technology, as well as the RFID security system, which even has the ability to remotely disable the engine of the vehicles in case of theft. We're occupying a marketing position that's really not being served by anybody in Indian cities right now. And we're pretty confident that we provide greater value for money than anybody else operating in Indian cities. We anticipate that our initial demographic will be similar to zip cars in the United States, young families, young professionals, and older students. These are people either who could just barely afford to own a car or people who can't quite afford to own a car and who can really benefit from the cost savings of car sharing while still enjoying the flexibility and freedom of having access to a vehicle. Now, as I mentioned, we've negotiated some really world-class partnerships, the most valuable of which are with the vehicle manufacturers. We've negotiated enormous discounts on the vehicles from GM, Mahindra, and BMW. and in addition, relationships related to financing, insurance, and vehicle maintenance. Now, all of these manufacturers have also taken the initiative to propose a more strategic partnership than just a supplier relationship. Car manufacturers understand that car sharing shrinks the market for a car, but that they really can't stand in its way, and that by cooperating with car sharing, an individual car manufacturer can secure a larger share of a smaller market. GM and Mahindra have suggested that Zoom can use their dealerships as our initial sites. They would provide parking, security, marketing, and logistics. BMW said that they would identify potential BMW customers and pay for them to have a weekend BMW Zoom rental. I'll mention here, we anticipate that the luxury segment will be our highest margin segment, and that we can use the profits from that to make our basic offering more affordable to the lower middle class. We also have negotiated a partnership with MapMy India, India's preeminent vehicle technology provider, as well as real estate developers and universities. We're going to be conducting a 10-vehicle, 3-month proof of concept in Bangalore in the dense, young neighborhood of Kormangala at 2 residential complexes there. And from there, we'll be expanding in Bangalore to other residential complexes, to universities, to corporate and government partners, and from there, we'll be expanding across India. We have what we think are ambitious but realistic benchmarks for this proof of concept. We intend to get 600 members and get 30% utilization across our vehicles. Zipcar has a member-to-vehicle ratio of about 55, and vehicle utilization, depending on their market, between 30% and 50%. So what we're trying to do is, with our proof of concept, meet some of Zipcar's metrics, although we've taken into account local conditions as we calculate these. We're currently seeking a $500,000 seed round to fund our proof of concept and expansion up to 30 vehicles in Bangalore. In about 3 months, we'll be seeking, 3 months after launch in Bangalore, we'll be seeking a $2 million A round to fund our full expansion in Bangalore. About 6 months later, we'll seek a $6 million B round to fund expansion in Delhi, Mumbai, Pune. And about a year later, we'll be expanding across India and raising our last outside round of funding. Now, Zoom's founders have so far contributed $45,000 to this project. Now, that's only a fraction of the total cost, but I can tell you, as a third-year law student, that's not even my entire life savings, because I don't have any life savings. All I have is a mountain of debt. So these funds so far have gone to market research, to pay for our attorney in India, to pay for our incorporation in the, who's incorporating us in India, consulting fees, travel to India, travel and registration for various entrepreneurship conferences, and website registration and development. We've additionally been very fortunate to receive $5,000 as a finalist in Harvard's iLab President's Social Entrepreneurship Challenge. And those funds are going to the small portion of Wilson Sonsini's fees that are not deferred, the incorporation fees in Delaware and incorporating our subsidiary in India, the minimum capitalization requirements for a corporation in India, improving our website, and entering other business plan competitions. If there are any investors watching, or potential investors, I should say, watching this presentation, you might want to pause on this slide, briefly detailing where the $500,000 will go. And you may be particularly interested to see this slide, our path to profitability. The 2 numbers I'll just call out here is that we anticipate being EBITDA positive around month 9 and pre-tax cash flow positive around month 15. Now, this is my favorite slide, why Zoom will succeed. Things I've mentioned, but we have first mover advantage. We are going to be bringing something that has been proven around the world in both developed and developing countries. We are going to be the first in India, and we can really lock up a lot of advantages there. We've already created strong partnerships. We have valuable relationships. We have a management team that has really put skin in the game in terms of money now and willingness to bypass opportunities in the future. We have an amazing board of advisors. We have multiple opportunities to get our product to members. And we have an understanding of the market and an understanding of the consumer's needs. this is really an opportunity to do well by doing good. There's a possibility to make an enormous profit that is fairly low risk, and at the same time an opportunity to do really a lot of good, helping people in India and helping the environment in India. It's quite an opportunity. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time in viewing this presentation.